Kia ora tātou ngai iwi o Timotu, ko ngā pohi taku iwi, ngai tū te auru i te hapu, e noho ana kei poi Hakena. Me hatu ki ngā iwi o te whenua moimoi a, te kaitiaki o te whenua nei. Taku inga o ko Brent Reihana, te kaupapa o te rangi nei, Kapa Haka kei te whenua moimoi a. Along with thousands of others, attending Te Matatini was just not possible for our family. I experienced the wairua via online streaming technology, where I was able to view on the bus, at church and at work. The wairua of the performers shone through, leaving me with a lump in my throat, involuntary tears running unashamedly down, and the occasional inappropriately timed scream of joy. I was both proud and moved. I want to share my insight of the Australian view to expose to the daylight an ugly and silently festering ulcer that prevails unfettered by good sense, justice and strong community leadership. This is done in the hope that the day looms closer, that maturity and clear sense prevails and rids us of this pestilence. The state of Kapa Haka from a Poi Hakana perspective is shared in the hope of illustrating a good Kapa Haka landscape that has the potential to become a great one. Having conversations with veteran Kapa Haka performers in Australia and Aotearoa, I know others share similar views. It is overwhelmingly clear that change must come before progress can be made. For Poi Hakana and Australia to even dream of greatness. Unfortunately, change is opposed from within some Kapa Haka committees. Usually this signals upheaval and a short-term loss, costing rank and file members. Poi Hakana competing Rōpū in 2013 were focused on internal struggles to form cohesive teams, fundraise for uniforms and compose items of equality to impress the Matatini judges. Their pressure was coming from within, and focusing on other matters, understandably, wasn't a priority. The New South Wales Māori Performing Arts Incorporated were dealing with an issue that wasn't on the Rōpū's immediate radar, and yet had the ability to jeopardise their hopes of competing nationally as a Rōpū. But I'll talk about this more later on. Te rāranga whānui, made up of Rōpū from within Poi Hakana, made the biggest impact upon Kapa Haka in Poi Hakana in recent times. In my view, not because they won a spot at Te Matatini, but because they collaborated with other groups in Australia and Aotearoa. Vicky and Wee Wehi and Wilson Poha, among others, were co-opted from Te Whare Wānanga o Aotearoa to lift Kapa Haka to the levels of the 1980s when Muriwai led Te Huinga Waka. The fallout, however, is a lingering disharmony as a result of bringing Māori together in Poi Hakana under one umbrella to compete as a separate entity. This is normal for all groups. It's called the progressing through forming, storming and norming stages. Individuals, right or wrong, felt compromise and withdrew, sometimes bringing others away with them. Many times unrest was causing more unrest amongst the ranks. This is called the mourning stage. And historically, groups temporarily weakened during this time. But with positive support from family and community, Te Rāranga Whānui will become stronger, and they will continue to gravitate to their own strengths and carve out their unique brand of Kapa Haka. In 2014 in Poi Hakana, Iti Rearea was the other group that achieved beyond all expectations. Managing to come together with more than 50 kids is a feat in itself. Actually excelling whilst dealing with the trials of changing tutors, forming committee and fundraising is a testament to this passionate community sport and family that Kapa Haka brings. It was comforting to see Te Toia o Ngārangi form and make a name for themselves as a new entity in Kapa Haka, as was Te Puna Maramai and Te Huinga Waka, who consistently draw together to bring performing team centre stage. The most recently elected New South Wales Māori Performing Arts Committee was made up of volunteers loyal to Kapa Haka. As an incorporated association, the rules were straightforward. The goal to administer and support Kapa Haka in Poihākena. Previously, New South Wales had made a successful bid to host the National Kapa Haka competition. The task was, therefore, for the elected committee to host the event in 2014. This is about as cheery as it gets. Going into it felt like the opening of a scene from a Clint Eastwood western. An old rickety town post swings as a welcome to the incoming committee. 8 years of unpaid dust-covered bills for unsubmitted mandatory reports. I mean, no disrespect to past committee members, this is no witch hunt. When the community doesn't support a community organisation, there really isn't much impetus or rationale to continue. The committee was enthusiastic, skilled and experienced in many facets, befitting a group tasked with the organisation of the Australian National Kapa Haka competition. In particular, the project management skills of Pearl Pickering in pulling the event together illustrated activities and tasks down to minute areas. Regular meetings were conducted with our chair having full support of the committee, and members were able to video conference to meetings, saving valuable travel time, expense and energy. Pearl negotiated a fantastic deal with Sydney Olympic Park, and the energy of the committee was focused towards raising the level of professionalism within Kapa Haka and to a wider range of audience within Australia. New South Wales Māori Performing Arts elected a delegate from within their committee, or our committee, to sit on the governing body of Kapa Haka in Australia, Ngā Kapa Taumata Teitei, NKTT. We were advised, however, by NKTT that they had the power to veto an elected delegate from representing our committee on their committee should they see fit. We were also advised by NKTT, when our delegate later resigned from the New South Wales committee, that the delegate would still be representing New South Wales and would work directly with competing Ropu and would liaise with NKTT. This in effect meant that NKTT could elect its own delegate without the input of New South Wales Māori Performing Arts. As a committee member of New South Wales Māori Performing Arts Incorporated, I was privy to the operational activity of NKTT, the Australian committee charged with organising and operating the National Kapa Haka competition. Many times during my tenure, I was absolutely repulsed by the devious, dubious and downright disgusting behaviour of some of the NKTT committee. The committee held their organisation's AGM practically in secret. Certainly no New South Wales Māori Performing Arts members were ever invited or informed about the AGM. This effectively allowed the entire committee to remain unopposed. One of the NKTT antics included calling New South Wales Māori Performing Arts Committee to attend a catch-up meeting with NKTT with less than 12 hours notice. NKTT members had travelled from out of state to Sydney for the arranged AGM. Although New South Wales Māori Performing Arts were informed of the meeting via our delegate, we were not invited nor advised that it was an AGM. The majority of our committee, however, attended, and having promised my family that I would take them to the beach, I took them along, intending the promised beach trip would occur after the meeting. We discovered at the meeting that the NKTT AGM had just taken place, not moments before our meeting. Prior to New South Wales Māori Performing Arts attending the meeting, NKTT had voted that a deed be put to New South Wales Māori Performing Arts with the intent that New South Wales Māori Performing Arts immediately sign and heed to the direction of NKTT. The mind boggles. The deed had been prepared allegedly the previous night and was tabled for New South Wales Māori Performing Arts to sign immediately, there and then. The demand that we must sign was made throughout the meeting and at times demanded with menace. Having read the document during the meeting and noting several spelling mistakes, syntax errors and irrelevant content, it read much more like a narrative of past relationships between NKTT and other state and territory hosts than an agreement of terms to a deed. The host being predominantly ACT Kapa Haka organisation, of which the chair of NKTT and others were members. The so-called deed was handed to our committee with the full knowledge of our elected New South Wales Māori Performing Arts delegate, Lucy Martin, and who apparently automatically became a committee member of NKTT. Apparently under the NKTT constitution, the elected New South Wales Māori Performing Arts delegate position automatically provided that a person that was the delegate a position as a voting member of NKTT. How an elected member of a New South Wales Māori Performing Arts can vote on matters in an entirely separate organisation, NKTT, to bind the committee, New South Wales Performing Arts, while also being a member of New South Wales Performing Arts itself is beyond all comprehension. However, this is exactly what transpired. And that happened with the full knowledge and blessing of NKTT and their committee. The general content of the document from NKTT would, for all intents and purposes, enable NKTT to direct and manage the Australian National Kapa Haka competition, whilst New South Wales Māori Performing Arts would hold all liability and cost. As Treasurer at that time, the area of notable alarm was where the document deemed NKTT would also handle and control all finances, including those of New South Wales Māori Performing Arts. At that meeting, and not without much heated argument, Isaac Cotter did eventually and kindly allow New South Wales Māori Performing Arts Committee a few moments to discuss the document amongst ourselves. The chairman, NKTT chairman, however, continuously restated his position and that of NKTT committee, which again included our own delegate, that the document must be signed. After requesting clarification on a number of points, we were graciously given an opportunity to go through the document with the NKTT committee and raise matters of concern to New South Wales Māori Performing Arts. During the preceding discussions and upon further negotiation, the deed was restated as a memorandum of understanding. However, once this point was conceded, Isaac Cotter once again demanded that we immediately sign the document. It was only when the matter of duress in signing was raised that we were granted a further 24 hours to consider the contents of the document before signing. After about 3 or 4 hours of being at what was supposed to be a quick meeting, my family became restless and we left. Some days later, we were directed via email not to pass the document to any other person. We did not sign the document in the 24 hours we were granted graciously, nor ever. We did, however, continually attempt to seek clarification and maintain open dialogue with both Isaac Cotter and the NKTT committee. Sadly, most of our attempts via phone call and emails requesting information went unanswered or were just plain unhelpful. Despite promises to the contrary, our concerns were not addressed. The document's contents were apparently non-negotiable. It became apparent to us that our work in preparing for the Australian National Kapa Haka competition had been futile. The event management was to be very different from what we had envisaged. New South Wales Māori Performing Arts were no longer involved in organising a Kapa Haka event, but merely there to provide finance, labour and liability cover for NKTT. When this bid failed, Isaac Cotter contacted the provider, Sydney Olympic Park, that we had been in contact with, contacted them directly in an effort to secure the previous arrangements that we had put in place for use by NKTT. The New South Wales Māori Performing Arts AGM, to which, unlike NKTT AGM, invitations were broadcast publicly, was held at Te Wairua Tapu. It was on this day that Isaac Cotter stated that we as members of New South Wales Māori Performing Arts Committee had acted fraudulently in making representation on behalf of NKTT. The fact that their name was on a document had no direct bearing on any financial implications, and the question required New South Wales Māori Performing Arts to submit names of groups who would likely support the event. At the AGM, Isaac Cotter stated that the entire committee of New South Wales Performing Arts was incompetent and needed to step down. It was no secret that Isaac Cotter had a personal issue with New South Wales Māori Performing Arts chairperson Wayne Prentice. It seemingly irked Isaac that Wayne Prentice had the full support and confidence of the New South Wales Māori Performing Arts Committee. And this, in my view, was just another attempt to undermine and bully to gain the support away from New South Wales Māori Performing Arts. The NKTT delegate resigned from New South Wales Māori Performing Arts. We elected another delegate who was never acknowledged as one by NKTT. Instead, the resignee continued to attend NKTT meetings, pass on information and liaise with selected groups in New South Wales. Our committee was denied vital information which disadvantaged groups in New South Wales. Over a period of months, New South Wales Māori Performing Arts repeatedly requested a copy of the NKTT Constitution in an effort to understand how we could work in with NKTT. However, even though Isaac Cotter himself agreed to provide us with this document, it was never provided to our committee. Upon sourcing this document via alternate sources and reading it, it was quite clear to us that NKTT had breached their own constitution, which I have noted in some detail in a recently released blog. The NKTT decision-making process was slow. It was left until a few weeks before the competition to inform New South Wales Māori Performing Arts that NKTT would be organising the competition. This left New South Wales Māori Performing Arts in an untenable position with groups that arrangements had been made with. Given the backdrop of what was just put before you, I would ask the question, is this the organisation that Australia needs to organise and represent Kapa Haka in Australia? I know Isaac's answer. I've heard it many times. And he wheels it out often and menacingly to restate his own authority. His argument is that we are at the behest of Te Matatini and that at any time they can simply cut us out. He rolls out the history of NKTT, which I openly applaud and thank all of those that had a role in making possible Kapa Haka in Australia to be part of Te Matatini. But it's time to move on. Peter Sharples has retired from politics, and so should his one-liners for Māori living in Australia. Come home if you want something, come home. Well, for 1 in 5 Māori living in Australia, the reality is, and I quote a local church minister, it ain't gonna happen. I'm truly glad that Perth gets to host the Nationals, if that is actually the case, because we here in Australia haven't officially been made aware. My understanding was that the process should be decided by a delegate making a bid and the committee considering the pros and cons in a business-like fashion. The only bid that I was aware of was Marsh Nikora and Isaac Cotter discussing it on stage at the New South Wales Australian National Kapa Haka competition. Were the activities of NKTT committee entirely in the best interests of Kapa Haka? How could the committee members allow their chair to act in such a dishonourable and derogatory manner? For Australia, like any growing organisation, it must move forward. Far too often, good people have sat on their hands and accepted behaviour indicative of FNKTT, and I fear that this will continue to be the case unless those same good people make a stand. The vision that New South Wales Māori Performing Arts saw is simple: to host nationals in Kapa Haka while raising the level of administrative and performance professionalism. Why would we not put a bid in to host Te Matatini here in Australia? We certainly can't look that far forward with this current management in place. Kia ora tātou, ko Brent Reihana aho.